What's going on, guys? Apathetic here, and today I'm going to be covering two things. First is Bungie moving away from Pinnacle Weapons to Ritual Weapons, and secondly, my concerns around the Crucible meta next season. Let's get into it. Starting with the changes to Pinnacle Weapons, if you haven't heard by now, essentially Bungie is moving away from creating Pinnacle Weapons each season and has now moved to Ritual Weapons. Ritual Weapons are basically certain archetypes of weapons that they choose. For example, Crucible this coming season in Shadowkeep is a scout rifle, and it's going to be curated roles. Now, the reason they decided to do this was because of a couple of reasons. One is simply they were often way too powerful than they actually wanted them to be. Two, it caused issues in the player ecosystem since weapons like Recluse and Mountaintop were so effective in PvE. It was forcing people into the Crucible to attain PvP weapons for PvE. And it's mentioned in the next section of the TWAB legendary weapons in general they feel are just too powerful, and I believe Pinnacle Weapons were a big part of that. Now, my thoughts on these changes, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I do agree that a lot of the Pinnacle Weapons were very powerful. So powerful, in fact, that they would often outclass a lot of exotics. I think anytime you get to a place where legendary weapons are more powerful than the majority of exotics, that is a problem and a sign that a weapon is far too powerful. The other negative aspect of these Pinnacles is it eliminated variety in PvE and to an extent in PvP. If I'm going into Menagerie or Reckoning, I'd be a fool to use anything other than Mountaintop and Recluse, and it really shouldn't be that way. A big part of what makes Destiny great is loadout diversity and all the different ways you can play with diverse loadouts. And because these Pinnacle Weapons were so powerful, they essentially removed that aspect of the game. The flip side of all this is this could potentially remove player drive for different activities, and because I'm a heavy Crucible player, I'm going to focus on Crucible. Now, I know there's a lot of changes coming to comp and supers, all that jazz, but traditionally the large majority of the community is not a big fan of comp. And again, this could all change with next season, but I have to say I'm a little concerned about the lack of having a Pinnacle going into Crucible this season, because for me, one of the things I look for the most in each season was the Crucible Pinnacle Weapon, and seeing what the special perk was going to be and how viable or not it could potentially be. Because of this curiosity and the fact that this weapon was strictly obtainable through Crucible, it gave me the motivation to jump into comp and start grinding away. Now, depending where you are in your journey, you may still have reasons to grind through comp. I know a lot of people are still hoping to get a Not Forgotten or get their Unbroken title, but if you already have achieved both of these things and now the Pinnacle Weapon for Crucible is no longer a thing, you could see why now there isn't much reason to grind through comp anymore. Now, it's possible we still don't have the full picture, and maybe there will be some cosmetics like ornaments or emblems that we achieve by reaching different levels of comp, or maybe they put the Thorn Catalyst in there, which I'm sure would piss a bunch of people off, but who knows. I do know initially people are going to be looking for a reason to play comp now, and if none of the things I mentioned above come to fruition, I worry the player base, especially on PC, could suffer when it comes to competitive in the Crucible. But hopefully I'm overstating things, and the amount of people that will actually be negatively impacted by this change is smaller than I think. But hit me up in the comment section below to give your thoughts on this change to Pinnacle Weapons. Moving on to my second topic, and if you're still here listening or watching, you are a real one and I appreciate you. But getting into my concerns for the meta next season, my concern for next season is that because of the buffs coming to rapid fire and high impact pulses, along with the reduction to range on pulse rifles and hand cannons, the buffs to snipers when it comes to how they are more lethal against supers, and capping that all off with the Ritual Weapon being a scout rifle, I'm concerned that the meta next season is going to be a bunch of lane sitting. You're going to have a bunch of warlocks sitting in their rifts, just lane sitting with their pulses and scout rifles. And for anyone who remembers, this would be a similar meta to Destiny 2 Year 1, where Graviton Lance and Vigilance Wing were king, and it was just a bunch of lane sitting. Thankfully, the changes to weapons and Forsaken limited a bunch of that kind of play, but even in today's meta, lane sitting is relatively viable still. So with all the changes I mentioned above, I fear it can become even more viable. And for me, I find that playstyle a little boring. I don't outright hate it, but again, for me, it's definitely not my favorite way to play. I also worry because it's this type of meta, and this type of meta may be so strong that may really limit the effectiveness of hand cannons and other medium close range weapons. And if the ritual weapon scout rifle ends up being super powerful, obviously that's only going to encourage this lane sitting type of playstyle even more. Obviously time will tell on this, but with all these changes, it's just a sense I get. But let me know in the comments if you would be okay with this kind of meta, or if you share some of my concerns. With that, guys, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, as it's a free way to support me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Get those zones back. Zone B captured. You have zone advantage. Minutes. Fight for vengeance. Take their lead from them. Double down. The lead is yours. I love it. For moments of clarity, our weapons, Warlock. That's why we have fire. Zone A captured. Zone advantage is yours. Zone C lost. 1 minute left. With 10 warlocks like you, I can turn ideas into weapons. It is lost, but the battle is still close. Zone C captured. You have zone advantage. 30 seconds remaining. Zone A lost. You're in the lead. You captured Zone B. You have zone advantage. I could not ask for a better victory.
You fight like a demon for these zones. Bring me your friends. I need more like you.